Okay, so when you hear the name Thor, you probably picture the superhero, right? Well, the original god of thunder from Norse mythology. He's a whole different story. A much more complex and, honestly, way more fascinating character. He was this brawny, ever-watchful defender of gods and humans alike. You know, the ultimate loyal warrior. So, let's dive right into the epic saga of the real Thor.
First things first, let's clear something up. The hero you know from the comics and movies, the clean-shaven, blonde Avenger, that's a pretty modern take. The Thor of the myths was a completely different beast. We're talking about a loud, fierce-eyed god with a huge red beard and an appetite to match, who rode across the sky in a chariot pulled by two goats. This wasn't just some hero, he was the god of the common people.
Now, every great warrior needs a signature weapon, and for Thor, that was his hammer, Mjölnir. But here's the wild part. This legendary weapon wasn't forged in some noble epic quest. No, it was created because of a prank that went horribly wrong, and it was all thanks to the god of mischief himself, Loki. So it all started when Loki, just for kicks, decided to cut off all the beautiful golden hair of Thor's wife, Sif. Thor was, you can imagine, absolutely furious. To save his own skin, Loki promised a replacement made of real gold. So he goes to the dwarves, the master craftsmen of the Nine Realms, and decides to turn the whole thing into a bet. As the dwarf brothers Brokkr and Sindri were forging their masterpieces, a desperate Loki shapeshifted into a fly to mess them up. And right as they were working on the hammer, he bites one of the smiths right on the eyelid. That one moment, that single act of sabotage, is why Mjolnir's handle was forged just a little too short, giving the perfect weapon its one famous flaw. But here's the thing. Even with the most powerful weapon in the cosmos, Thor wasn't invincible. In fact, one of his most famous stories is about a time he was just completely humbled, not by strength, but by pure magic. So let's head over to the land of the giants, where Thor meets the master illusionist, Utgarda Loki. After being mocked for his size, which is a big mistake, Thor, who's known for his legendary drinking skills, accepts a challenge. The giant king, Utgarda Loki, hands him this massive drinking horn and says, "A truly great drinker could empty it in one go." Thor, full of confidence, says he can do it in 3. But no matter how much he drank, the level in the horn barely seemed to move. He failed. What he had no way of knowing was that the other end of that horn was magically connected to the ocean. So while he technically failed the challenge, his gulps were so unbelievably huge that he actually lowered the sea level, creating the world's very first tides. So next, Utgarda Loki points to a cat just lounging on the floor and challenges the fuming god of thunder to simply lift it. Talk about an insultingly easy task, or so it seemed. Thor puts all of his divine strength into it, but to his utter shock, he just can't do it. The best he could do was lift one of its paws off the ground. So what was the secret? Well, that wasn't a cat. It was Jörmungandr, the colossal world serpent disguised by magic. The giants were absolutely terrified because by lifting even a single paw, Thor had come dangerously close to shaking the very foundations of the cosmos. Completely furious at this point, Thor demands a wrestling match. Utgarda Loki, just loving this, continues to mock him by calling forward his old nurse, an elderly woman named Ellie, to be Thor's opponent. I mean, could there be anything more humiliating for the mightiest of all the gods? Thor struggled for hours, but the more he fought, the harder the battle became, until finally he was forced down to one knee, totally defeated. He'd been wrestling with Ellie, you see, and her name in Old Norse literally means age. Thor, the god of strength, was fighting old age itself, an abstract force that no one, not even a god, can ever conquer. And that was the whole point of Utgarda Loki's game. He wasn't just a trickster, he was a teacher. He was using these illusions to show Thor that there are limits to power, and that some forces in the universe just can't be beaten with a hammer. This whole experience sparked a deep, burning hatred in Thor for the World Serpent, Jörmungandr. After being humiliated like that, he was no longer content to just wait around for their fated battle. Oh no, the god of thunder decided to go hunt his nemesis. And this wasn't just any fishing trip. This was basically a prelude to the end of the world. So Thor convinces this giant named Hymir to take him out to sea. Ignoring all of Hymir's warnings, he rows them way out into the deepest waters, right where the World Serpent was known to lurk. And for bait, he used something you'd expect for such a monstrous creature, the entire head of Hymir's biggest ox. And you guessed it, the serpent took the bait. What followed was a battle of just pure, raw strength. Thor dug his feet so hard into the boat that they went right through the bottom just to brace himself. He pulled and pulled until the monster's venom-dripping head broke the surface. God and serpent, finally face to face. Thor raises Mjölnir, ready to end this rivalry for good. But in that critical, world-altering moment, fate had other plans. His companion, the giant Heimer, was so completely paralyzed with fear at the sight of this world-ending beast that he just panicked. He whipped out a knife and slashed the fishing line.
Jörmungandr sank back into the abyss. Thor, just seething with rage, had missed his chance. The prophecy was delayed, but their encounter pretty much sealed the deal. Their final, world-shattering duel was now an absolute certainty.
And that fated duel, it had a name, and it had a time. It was prophesied to happen at the end of days, during an apocalyptic event that would consume all 9 of the worlds, Ragnarok. So this event is known as Ragnarok, the fate of the gods. And it's not just an ending. It's this final, cataclysmic battle that leads to the total destruction of the world, but it's followed by a cleansing and a rebirth. It's here, at the end of everything, that Thor and Jörmungandr would finally meet their destiny. When Ragnarok finally arrives, it's just pure chaos. The long winter comes to an end, the sun and moon are swallowed by giant wolves, and the gods march out for their final battle. For Thor, this is it. This is the culmination of his entire life as a protector. As the seas rise up and the sky literally tears apart, Thor's ancient enemy finally emerges. Jörmungandr thrashes its way out of the ocean, spewing its deadly venom everywhere, poisoning the air, poisoning the water, and signaling that the end has truly begun. And Thor, ever the champion, charges headfirst into the fight. Their final battle shakes the very fabric of existence, and with a single blow of divine fury, Thor brings Mjölnir down on the serpent's head, crushing its skull, and finally slain his greatest enemy. The prophecy is fulfilled. He has saved the future world from its most venomous threat. But victory always has a price. Soaked in the serpent's lethal poison, the god of thunder stands triumphant for just a single moment. He staggers backward, managing to take only 9 steps before that potent venom finally overwhelms him, and he falls to his death. His victory is absolute, but so is his sacrifice. Thor's whole saga is this incredible cycle of mischief, humiliation, rivalry, and then, finally, this bittersweet triumph that costs him his life. But in Norse myth, Ragnarok isn't just an end. It's a cleansing before a new world is born. Which leaves us with a question, right? What does it mean when a hero's greatest victory is also his death? What is left behind when the old gods and their legends finally fall?